Welcome back, students of Standard 9, yet another phase of the early Vedic period. In the last class, we have dealt about the literary sources. Today, we are going to deal about the archaeological sources. Now, what is archaeology? Archaeology is the study of the remains of the past. So, the historians reading the objects of the remains draw conclusion and give us the valuable information about the people, their way of life existing at that particular period. So in the archaeological sources, we have iron artifacts. Now what are iron artifacts? Now already we have learned that iron was prevalent, or use of iron came in India around 1000 BC, and iron was a very useful metal. It helped people to develop agriculture and clear the vast tracts of land and make them into a fertile land. So therefore the iron proved to be very useful. It marks the beginning of the civilization, and people used iron in making their tools, weapons which could benefit them. So in that context we have agriculture. Now since agriculture was the prime occupation of the people of the areas, the use of iron made them more suitable to grow their crops. Why? Because the iron tools were more durable than the previous wood tools. So iron tools were used to make like plows, sickles, hoes, etc. So that the vast tract of land could be brought under the cultivation using the agriculture. Therefore agriculture became the prime importance of the people of the areas. Yeah. Then we have occupation. As iron was easily available, so people started making different tools of irons like hoes, hammers, tools, tongs, and different other articles. So this gave rise to the different occupations like the blacksmiths, the weavers, the carpenters, and the tanning of leather, all etc. were used by the iron implements. So therefore it gave us rise to the different occupations, like people took to farming, weaving, tanning, etc. Next we have the defense. As iron was found to be more durable and strong, so the people started making like war tools like swords, shields, armors were made to defend themselves from the war. Therefore we can say that the iron proved to be a very useful to the early Aryans, and it marks the beginning of the civilization, flourished in different activities, different ways in their life, and brought the wandering Aryans into leading a civilized life. Then second part we have the pottery. Now pottery, different potteries have been found in different places. First we say the grey ware pottery. The grey ware pottery is found in Punjab and Haryana. It speaks about their knowledge and art of making pottery from the mud-baked clay. So that was found in Punjab and Haryana places. Then P. Jamrudi, that is the painted grey ware, is also found in different parts of the country. That means it shows that the Aryans, they use high quality clay to make the potteries, and the potteries they made were with beautiful designs like geometrical patterns, and they had floral patterns usually depicting the sun, and the potteries were usually made with open mouth and with lot of designs. So from this also we come to know about the different way of life the Aryans gathered from them. So these are all we have today for the archaeological sources. Now we come back to the origin of the Aryans. Now many historians they believe that the original home of the Aryans were not India. Scholars like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Professor Max Muller and all, they believe that the Aryans were a nomadic tribe that living in Southeast Asia somewhere near the Caspian Sea. And since they had to move from that place as it was intense cold, so they migrated from that place and came back through the northwestern passes and settled down in the Gangetic plain. So that was the theory they hold, but many of them, still the historians are doubtful about the origin of the Aryans. But the Professor Max Muller, his theory is regarded to be the most appreciated or most reliable source of the Aryans. So he also believed that the Aryans were somewhere of the Central Asian tribes because he found lot of similarities between the people living in Asia Minor and the Aryans. So he concludes that all the Aryans must have migrated from Central Asia and came back to India as they were very strong and they were tribes belonging to the descendants of the foreign tribes of Central Asia. So he marks the certain points on which the theory is based on Professor Max Muller. So first of all, he says that the land in Asia Minor was very fertile. That means it was very fertile and it sustained agriculture, and so the aim of the people was the agriculture, and so the Aryans also, they were primarily the agriculturist people. That was one reason he suggested, was that the land in Asia Minor was found to be very fertile. Secondly, Asia Minor was equidistant from India and Europe. Equidistant means at equal distance from India and Europe, and so the people must have passed from there and came back and settled in India. So that is, the Asia Minor was equidistant from India and Europe. Next, we come here to that now the latest trend that we have seen is that the biologists noticed that the genetic traits, that is the DNA of the steppe people of Central Asia, and they found the similar traits in 35% of the people in North India. That is, the DNA test was taken and they found that 35% of the people in North India are finding the same genetic traits. So the conclusion is derived, that means the people must have been living in Asia Minor, and due to the intense cold they migrated from there and came back to India and settled down in the Punjab region. Clear? Then we have the flora and the fauna. The flora and the fauna is also mentioned in the Rig Veda, are referred in the Rig Veda, were found similar in Asia Minor. So all these 4 points prove that the original home of the Aryans were in Central Asia, somewhere near the Caspian Sea. So the theory of Professor Max Muller holds good for the Aryans of the settlement of the Aryans, the origin home of the Aryans. But till now the historians are still in doubt whether the actual home is Asia Minor or India. But till today, Professor Max Muller theory holds the reliable source of information about the Aryans. So now Aryans, when they came to India, it is believed that they came to India through the northwestern frontier passes and crossed Punjab and settled down in the banks of river Indus and its tributaries, and that place was called the Sub-Sindhu, or the land of 7 rivers. The Indus along with the tributaries and river Saraswati, which is now dried up, they settled down and named that place at Sub-Sindhu, that means the land of the 7 rivers, the Sub-Sindhu. And therefore, it was believed that the Rig Veda was composed over here, and therefore river Saraswati occupies a very pious river or holy river during that time. So after that, the Aryans, they came, it was believed that they did not come all at once. They came in phases, that is part by part. And so therefore they settled in the area, in Sub-Sindhu area, and when the Aryans further settled down, they call this as the Brahmavarta, or the land of the gods. And so it was believed that the Rig Veda, the oldest Veda, was composed at this period. Clear? That is called the early settlement of the Aryans. Now what happens as the Aryans, they came in here, so they had contact with the local inhabitants. So the local inhabitants, they had to fight in order to settle down over there. So it is believed that the local inhabitants were known as the Dasyas, Dasus or the Dasyas. They had to fight for their settlement, and so they had to fight with the local inhabitants that were called the Dasyus or the Dasas. And it is mentioned in the Rig Veda also, the Aryan chief Trasa Dasyu, who fought and established his power in this Gangetic belt, and he was known as Trasu Dasyu, that means the terror of the Dasyas. That means they had to wage constant war with the local inhabitants in order to settle down. So these are what we call it as the early settlements. And when the Aryans settled down in India, and finally they pushed these people far towards the Deccan and made their colonies, made their homes and settled down in the north of the river Ganges and its tributaries, and this they after fighting with the local inhabitants. So therefore these are the early settlements. Now when we move on with the political organization of the Aryans. What is political organization? That means the society. The Aryans, they followed a patriarchal form of family. That means the eldest male member of the family was the head of the family. That means he was known as the Grihapati or known as the Kulapati. That means he was the head of the family. He maintained all laws and orders within the family. And after his death, the same occupations was transferred to inherited by the biggest son of the family. So he transferred all his powers to the biggest son after his death. The eldest son was held responsibility to taking care of this. Therefore, the family was the smallest unit of the early Aryans. Then we see that means the village, the Gramini, was the head of the gram. Many grams together joined to form a vish, and many vish joined together to form a clan, and many clans joined together to form a jana or a tribe. The Rajan or the king was the head of the jana, and he controlled all of them by his power. And therefore he was assisted by a number of officers to assist in the administration, like the Senani was supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the army. Then Purohit was not the religious priest who used to perform religious sacrifices and other religious duties for the king. And then the village panchayat or the gram panchayat was headed by Gramini, who took about the local administration of the village. So therefore we see that the political organization of the Aryans. Then as time evolved, we see that the king did not maintain a huge army, but whenever there was war and other required, so he used to call the local chiefs to fetch them with the armies and wage war against the neighboring kingdom. Then as time passed on, the prominent assemblies like the Sabha and the Samiti also came to check the authenticity of the king. And the Sabhas, the regulars of the people, the Samiti carried on with the administrative work and took the check on the hold of the king. But as time passed on, the king, the later Vedic period, the king became more and more powerful, and the kingship became hereditary, and the Sabha and the Samiti lost its significance, and the kingship became hereditary, and it became, we may call it, absolute dictatorship, and he ruled with his subject. His words were laws, and whatever he said, the people had to follow. Then we see the position of the woman. The women enjoyed a greater freedom in the early Vedic period. They could join in yajnas along with their husband. They could choose their husband in swayambars, and they were also educated. Many women scholars at that time is fine, like Usha and all, they are highly qualified. Vidotma, they were highly qualified. Women scholars were found, but as time evolved, the society became more and more complex, and the value in the later Vedic period, the position of the women declined. They were no longer required in the yajnas and sacrifices along with the men. And then the context of choosing the husband in swayamvar was also not permitted. But however, it is believed that to some extent widow remarriage was considered, but not credible evidence has been found. So these were the sum of the position of the woman. So in our today's history part, we have only this, the archaeological survey and the political organization of the Aryans, and in the coming class we will be dealing more about their society, their way of life, their culture. Till then, revise, read the topic, take care of yourself, and have a good day. God bless you.